first. My name is Chaim Kramer. And what do you want to do tonight? What do you want to do tonight? I came from Eretz Israel. I'm here now. What do you want from me tonight? Whatever you want. Just tell me what you want, and then we'll start.
So basically, the Olam is the learning Torah Samachal we're definitely trying to get to the meaning of age. But before we put all the dots together, we saw B, and as much as we could understand until the end of Boy's Gimel in the Torah. So
okay, so you want Torah Samachal. The first thing you have to know about me is that as the person progresses in life, they get older. As they get older, they get harder of hearing. So if you want me to hear what you're saying, you gotta say it loud and clear. I have hearing loss, okay? I should be wearing hearing aids, but I can't stand it, so here we go. All right? Where would you like to start? Chodi Reb Shimon. Where would you like to start with the questions? What's bothering you? Right? Some of the Shlita, What would you like?
They want to know what does mean a Rabbi Hogun and a Rabbi Sheini Hogun.
That's a very good question. Very good question. Okay. The Rebbe speaks. You have to understand the closest when this Torah was given. It was Rosh Hashanah 1808 and 1807. And at that time, there were several things happening in Russia, which Ukraine was part of Russia. And just a few years before that, Ukraine was part of Poland. Russia took over, and in 1797, I think it was, they decided to make many gzeros against the Yid. Many gzeros that would destroy Yid. That was the Russian intent. It hasn't changed since then, but that's what happened then. You know? Some of the decrees, the Rebbe calls them the Gzeros Punkten. You find it, the points, there were several points. One point was secular education. The Jews would be forced to go through secular education. Anyone who's aware of what's going on today with universities, with secular education, you can understand how terrible this Gezerah was. Look what the secular education has done, right? There's actually universities, they give you a degree if you study leisure studies, how to go on vacation. Imagine that, that's what you go to college for. And all the other garbage that they teach you there, Black history, right? Anyone interested in Black history? But they teach you that. You get a degree in the secular education was the first one. The second one was the Cantonist degrees. Cantonist degrees were those that they drafted Jewish children from the age of 10 or 12. They were supposed to be drafted into cantons, which were like army camps or army schools, the Jews were drafted till the age of 18, and then they were drafted into the army, the Russian army, for 25 years. Very few of the hundreds of thousands of Yiddish kinder who were taken by the Russians came back to Yiddishkeit afterwards. There were a few, but very few in between. The third decree was the Pale of Jewish Settlement. If you're familiar with that, starting in 1812 it happened. The Jews, they had inns, they had different positions in different areas. They can stay in the rural areas of Jackson, it's not quite New York City, but they were in small places scattered throughout the countryside. They were all forced to give up their homes and to move into Jewish cities. And that's what happened. That's called the Pale of Jewish Settlement. And what you have is the desires of the Russian government to destroy Klal Yisrael. And many of these ideas are covered in this lesson. One of the problems that was made then, it was all because of the Haskalah, the Enlightenment. Are you familiar with the Enlightenment? Anyone know about it? The Enlightenment is the forerunner of the Reform movement. Let's put it in easy terms. In the late 1700s, there was a guy, Moses Mendelssohn, who translated the Torah into German, and it led to people, you can be like a goy, you can live like a goy. And they had their own rabbonim, and some of them knew how to learn very well. But they weren't really worthy of leading kehilas. That's the question. A worthy Rav or not a worthy Rav, whatever the case is. One of the problems with that was that since the Enlightenment had an in with the Russian government, so they were able to have their rabbonim appointed as the rabbonim of cities. They were called, in our language, Rav Mitam. Rav from the Ta'am of the Memshola of the Russian government. They were appointed. They were not worthy. Some of them were Machalal Shabbos. They knew how to learn, but they were Machalal Shabbos. A lot of them were over on Niyuf. A lot of them were Treif. Whatever the case is, it was one of the worst gzeros that happened with all the Yiddish shtetlich throughout. Now they were small shtetlich, but each one had its own Rav. And wherever the Enlightenment was able to put in their own people, that's what destroyed Yiddishkeit. All you have to do is take a look and see what the Reform movement is today. The conservatives, by now it's falling apart. But the Reform movement, now they have a Reconstructionist movement, right? Yiddishkeit you can do whatever you want. You can be as goyish as you want, but you can call yourself a Jew. You have a guy like Bernie Sanders, you ever hear of him, right? Or Chuck Schumer, right? They're Jewish. Rachmana litzlan, the churbanos that they bring to Klal Yisrael, certainly the Reform movement, what it's done to alienate hundreds of thousands, millions actually, millions of Yidden. So that's the union of a worthy Jew or an unworthy Jew. Okay? That's the first step. But there's more to it. There's more to it because you have always Rabbonim and Elcha Rabbonim who are just not worthy of leading Kehilas. Right? Now most of the smicha, if you ever saw a smicha, it says that he's roy to lead a Kehila and all that kind of stuff. Not everybody who got that smicha was really roy to lead a Kehila. Because not only did you have to know, you also had to be a psychologist, you had to be a psychiatrist, you also had to be not from any university, but you had to understand human nature to be able to guide the flock to do the right thing. That's what a worthy Rav is. Right? You have questions on that? Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. I'm a pretty open guy, and I can take a lot of. You'd be surprised at what I've heard during my lifetime. Yeah. So a worthy Rav and an unworthy Rav, right? One who knows how to lead a kahila, and one who doesn't. One, if you don't know how to lead, then automatically you're misleading. You follow? If you don't know how to lead, and lead means a leader. Take, for example, Donald Trump, or Lahavdil Alfei Alofim, well, not Alfei Alofim, maybe a couple of hundred, but Netanyahu, I mean, they called themselves leaders.
Which way?
Huh?
Which way Lahavdil?
Huh?
Which way Lahavdil?
I don't know, but it doesn't matter. The point is that you have leaders, they're not leaders. None of them are leaders. They're all followers. They follow the polls. Whatever the polls will say, that's what they'll tell you what they want. Right? That's not a leader. Moshe Rabbeinu, for example, went into Egypt. Hi guys, I wasn't here for 60 years. I ran away, I was in Midian. I was protected from all the Xaviers of Paroi. But I want you to know I came here, I'm taking you out of Egypt. Can you imagine that happening today with any democratic country? A guy coming along saying, here, I'm your leader, and I'm going to take you out, and I'm going to do whatever you need. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu, that's a leader. David HaMelech was a leader. Right? He sent a couple of people to Ammon. Ammon helped protect David HaMelech's family from Shaul. So when the king died, David HaMelech sent a couple of messengers to Menachem Oval, so to speak, by the king of Ammon. The people of Ammon told the king, the prince then, hey, you think David HaMelech is coming to Menachem Oval? He's coming to spy out the land. So he went and humiliated David HaMelech's messengers. This is a story in Tanakh. I know they don't learn Tanakh much in yeshivas, right? I heard that one of the reasons is because there's one book of the Tanakh that's called Job. But okay, point is that you have the Indian of David HaMelech who was he sent these messengers, and the prince of Ammon shaved off half the beard and tore half their clothes. And he sent them back in humiliation. David HaMelech says, nobody does that to my people. He went and wiped out the floor with Bnei Ammon. That's a leader. Right? That's a leader. You don't have to be a leader of a nation. You can have a small kahila. You have a Rosh Kollel, I'm not going to talk about that, but whatever. You have a leader of a kahila, right? He's got to lead you right. He's got to be there to direct you what's emes and what's not emes. What's semi-emes, what's semi-emes. The Rebbe says in different Torahs, he talks about it, the emes is one. Emes is one. Torah Nun Aleph, he speaks about it. So the emes is one, and if you want to say anything else, a kli kesef, he says, is a kli kesef, silver. It's silver. If you want to tell a lie, it's gold, it's bronze, it's wood, it's copper, you can say anything you want about it. And that is sheker, right? Now, Reb Nosson asks, he says, if when Mashiach comes, the whole world is going to accept Hashem. Right? I guarantee that everybody here in this room, everybody, has a different perception of Hashem. Hashem Echad. Shema Yisrael, Rashi says, right in Chumash, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Shehu Elokeinu, Achshav, right? Hashem Echad, he would be at one time the Rav, the Melech over the whole world, right? How can that be if everyone here has a different perception of Hashem? He's not Echad. Everyone has a different perception. Reb Nosson asked that question and he answers, Mekut Allah. that emes is one. There is Hashem. But everyone, Hashem is Ein Sof, and being that He's Ein Sof, you can't grasp the concept of Ein Sof in your mind. Can anyone here picture infinite? You can't. It's way beyond our minds. So therefore, everyone is actually a part of the Ein Sof. Being a part of the Ein Sof means that you have a chelik of Hashem, you're a chelik of the Kamimal, your neshama is a part of Hashem, and you reflect one concept of Ein Sof. That is the emes that you have. And your emes is actually different than somebody else's emes. Right? Your perception is your perception, and the other guy has a different, which is why we're all different. If we were all the same, we'd all be clones, and Hashem wouldn't need us. But every single person has a gvaldik koyach, the key, inside him, and he has that power of emes. The leader has to be able to unite the people and get them all to recognize Hashem in all the different facets. Okay? So that's a leader. That's an emes leader. Someone who can bring the emes out of every single individual. Right? You have your emes, he has his. Everyone here has a different kind of emes. And despite the fact that you have different emes, right, we could all work together. We join, we unite. Hashem Echad. We're all here to serve Hashem. That's a worthy Rav. An unworthy Rav is someone who can't do that. Simple. Okay? Understood?
Why do some
Can you
leaders?
understand? I said earlier, I'm hard of hearing.
Why do some leaders?
Loud and clear.
Why do some people who are so-called leaders have so much power, even though
Why
they're
do
not
they have so much?
power? Even though they're not quote unquote good leaders, how do they have so much influence in so many people?
That's what the Rebbe is talking about in this lesson. Yesh manhigim shenekruim b'shem Rebbe shelimudo me'elu hamoisrus, right? V'lo dai she'enim mecholim afilu lahanigis atzmon v'kol shken she'enim mecholim lahanigis hachedim. That's why they have power. They took it. Rav Nosson goes through a whole discussion next week, not this week. This week is Chukas. Next week is Bullock. You ever hear that guy named Bilam? Right? Terrible guy. Terrible. Right? And he knew the hour that Hashem gets angry. And he was waiting for that moment in order to curse the Jews. Right? The Sifri says, "V'leikom b'Yisrael oid kamosha, kamosha b'Yisrael leikom, avol b'umois ha'olam kom, umenu Bilam." Bilam was as great in nevuah, in power, as Moshe Rabbeinu was. He had that power, right? How could that be? Bilam, the Zoya in Parshas Bola goes through how Bilam drew upon himself whatever tumah was possible. He worked to achieve it. He worked, Rahman al-Sallam, he had Maisha with his mule and all that kind of stuff, whatever. Point is that any person, Rav Nosson explains, according to your Bechira, you could draw upon yourself the Koyach Elyon of Hashem. If you think that you could lead a Kehillah, you'll get up there and you'll lead the Kehillah. Whether you're roy or not, we don't know. Achav was the king of Yisrael, right? A Rosh Gomer, right? Gemara says about him, he has the Chelik the Olam Haba. Then the Gemara changes it, but okay. Point is that he was such a Rosh Marusha, how could he have that koyach? Yerovim ben Avot, Chotov Echti Yisrael. How could he have that koyach? right? Take 10 tribes, right? And fafir them to the point where they all served Avodah Zorah, right? A few years before Shlomo HaMelech was there, they all went to the Beis HaMikdash, they all served Hashem. Within a couple of years, he got them all to serve Avodah Zorah. How come? Right? He had a koyach Yetzer Hara that went into him. Manhigim Shaloi, they're not ru'iyim, right? And he took that koyach HaBechira, like Bilam, like others, they took it and they felt that they're able to lead the country, or the people, whatever, and they did it, right? Now, that's a little bit far-fetched for most of us, but the fact remains, we have it in ourselves too. How do we have it? I assume most of the guys here are married with children. Do you ever try leading your child, directing him, how they're so obedient and they listen to everything that you say, and Chalila v'chas, no one's going to cry and scream and throw a temper tantrum? Do you ever see that? No. Okay, that's what happens. We, on our individual level, are also leaders, are also manhigim. We have families, right? The Rebbe says in Torah involved that everyone has the bechinas malchus. Everyone has the authority. You have your authority, do what you can with your authority. But you have to do it where you don't get any hanoah from it. Right? That's what the Rebbe says, Torah involved. Right? You're leading, but you're not getting any accolades, you're not getting any hanoah, you're not getting praise, you're not looking for it. You have nothing. Right? All you want is to be able to help the people come find Hashem. That's your tafkid as a leader. It's also your tafkid as a parent, right? You ever see a kid run into the street and the parent beats them up? Yeah? Are they beating him up because the kid ran into the street? What does the kid know? They're beating him up because you're angry, right? That's not leading, that's not directing, that's not teaching discipline. Follow? Power is given according to your koyach HaBechira. The way you want, the way you try, right? You want to lead people and do the right thing. You have to be able to know that your bechira is, I want Hashem in the picture. I want to recognize Hashem at every stage of my life. Now, that's difficult. It doesn't happen so easy. That's what we have to work for. That's our goal. But the point is that you have to take yourself, right, and try and gain that goal. Try and gain that tachlis so that you are there for Hashem. You are there to teach Megala that there is a likus in the world. And you can find Hashem. Okay?
According to what the Rav is saying,
According
to what the Rav is saying, that
my name is Chaim. I made that clear in the beginning.
according to what saying,
No, my name is Chaim. That was what was given by my bris. That's what will be on my matzeva. The word Rav won't appear. Okay, go ahead now. According to what I said before.
it's before Rabbeinu that the problem over here is that the masmich is the problem here is not the person who is a manig and is a bad manig, but rather the Rebbe says he has a Torah, so he's not the real bad guy here. It seems from this whole Torah that the in is the masmich and the what it's called in Heintige Welt the chotzer. Those masmichim are the ones who be'etzem are the ones bringing down the moisrius, being putting in mulas chomim and being putting him in the galgalim and not being able to say have eitzes. It has nothing to do with the manik himself. He's just a bad guy. He's the Torah. And on that note, how do we understand?
By the way, the bad guy, the manik himself, he's got a Yetzer Hara.
But why is that an excuse? But why is that an excuse?
They're not so guilty because they got Yetzer Hara. Everyone has a Yetzer Hara. Did you ever hear of that guy? Right? He's there from birth. Right? The Gemara says he's there from birth. Right? Yetzer Lev Ha'odem Ra Minu Urav. The Urav not only means youth, it means from his or. The Medrash says, from the day he's shaken from his mother's womb, right? That's when he has the Yetzer Hara. So he grows with him, and he grows on you, right? Okay. So now that guy is the bad guy, but who's the worst guy? The guy who tells him you're okay. That's who the worst guy is. Who tells him you're okay. You did bad. You're not really ready, but go ahead, go do the job. All right? If you remember, there's a Gemara in Chagiga.
Mayor Nacher.
Huh?
Mayor Nacher.
Well, Abba Nichnasu Lepardes. Rabbi Akiva Nichnas V'yotza B'Sholem. Ben Azai died on the spot. He went beyond his ability. Ben Zoyma went crazy. Right? Acher came out because. Right? So you have guys like that. You have who's Masmich Elisha Ben Acher. Right? Now, I ask you a different question. It came up with Shidduchim, talks already. There's a lot of talk about Shidduchim these days, right? Any Bochum here? Right? Okay, so anyway, whatever the case is, a Bochum or a girl, this one's a top boy, this guy's a top girl, right? This, and they got all these different names. In Shidduchim, he's the best, and he's the, right? Would Rabbi Akiva get a shidduch today? He was an Amoritz, right? Take a look at Rachel, Rabbi Akiva's wife, right? She grew up in Kalbus Savuzes. You ever hear of Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk? Billionaires, right? Kalbus Savur was a billionaire in his generation. His daughter Rachel grew up in the maximum of possibility of comfort, right? And she married Rebbe Akiva. What was Rebbe Akiva in? He was an Amoritz, right? He knew almost nothing, right? Even halacha achas, the Gemara and the Dorim there, whatever. The point is that would Rebbe Akiva ever get a shidduch, right? But what? She saw some good characteristics in him. That's what she married. She didn't marry, he was a top boy, he was a top girl. They didn't go for that kind of stuff, right? And Rabbi Akiva sweated it out. 40 years he was an Amoritz. And 40 years he learned. And then he became a leader, right? He was 80 years old. If I make it to the summer, I'll be 80. I haven't gotten anywhere near Rebbe Akiva's footsteps, right? But if you look at it and you start thinking about what goes on in this world today, how everything is so fachaded, that's smoked up, everything, nothing is straight. Whatever goes on in the world, all the inyonim, right? And the worst thing is that after a couple of years, after all the checking and all the doing, so they get divorced anyway after a couple of years. So what's the sense of all the checking? You're anyway gonna have to settle in court and whatnot. Anyway, the point is that the leader has to be someone like Rebbe Akiva, has to be someone like David HaMelech, like Moshe Rabbeinu. It has to be someone you have to figure out who this person is. Get Elisha Acher or Tina Beliboy, right? He had something wrong. There was something in his heart that wasn't really. Now, how many people today don't have a Tina Beliboy? They don't know, right? So that actually, if I have to say it, right, there's something wrong with the whole system, right? I've met Jungelite, Bochum, Jungelite. You speak to them, and the Rebbe is here talking about Emunah Chachamim, right? How many people are taught Emunah in yeshiva? Is it a topic? I don't think so. Is Emunah a topic? Believe there's Hashem Echad U'Shmoi Echad, right? That He runs the world, there's Hashkocha. Do you have that? That's what the Rebbe is talking about here. People who could, you can quote me Rashbas and Ritvas and everything, right? But if I talk to you about Emunah, do you have Emunah? You realize that the Eibishter is running every single thing here. We had now in Eretz Yisrael, we had a couple of problems with Iran. Anyone hear about that? Right? We had a couple of missiles. We had from the Houthis, they're cavemen, right? They live in caves, right? They eat in caves, they cook in caves, and they make in the bathroom in caves. That's the way the Houthis live. But they have missiles that can hit Eretz Yisrael, right? Can you figure this out? Does that make any sense? Right? Look on Hezbollah, right? From the word Zevel, right? What kind of people? And Gaza, we're not even talking about Hamas and all that kind of stuff. The Hamas, Achicha, Yaakov, Techaches, Kobusha, that they're allowed to live and whatnot. The whole thing. But there is a Ribbon Shalom. Does anyone recognize the Nisim that happened in Eretz Yisrael this last year and a half? How many tens of thousands of missiles were fired upon Eretz Yisrael? Just recently, a couple of missiles from Iran made a destruction in Eretz Yisrael. A few places. 28 people killed, half of them were Arabs, Baruch Hashem, right? But 10,000 missiles came. Where's the Emunah in Hashem? Where's all the Hidah thanking Hashem for all the miracles? They're recognizing Hashem's hand. Tashkocha Protas. Where is all that? Is that taught in the yeshivas? Right? Is that the problem? I mean, you're going to kick me out of here, and it's going to be okay. I've been kicked out of bigger places. I don't know, better, but bigger. Anyway, whatever the case is, I'm not afraid to talk about Emunah in Hashem, because that's the yesod of Yiddishkeit. Right? Bo chavakok v'yamiden alachas v'tzadik be'emunah so yichya. Right? The Gemara ends up saying the main thing is the Emunah. You have to have Emunah in Hashem. That's what the Rebbe is trying to say here. You have to have Emunah's Chachamim. Right? You have to believe whatever the Chachamim said. L'sosum and adavar shegidu l'chol yamin u'smoil. Don't be too much of a zealot. Don't be too lenient. Right? Shulchan Aruch is more or less, if you know the Rishonim, the Gemaras, the Rishonim, you look in Shulchan Aruch, you're more or less looking at a center path. More or less. There are sometimes a little bit chumrah, a little bit cooler. Basically, we're talking about a central position, right? There's Hashem. Hashem is the center column. Are you familiar with the spheres, with the Kabbalah? That's why we're talking in the dark now, so like the Idra Rabbah. Okay, the point is that you have a right column and you have a left column and you have a center column, right? And in the spheres, the koyach of Yamin is the koyach of small, but they have to be brought together to the central column. That's the way we're supposed to live our lives. That's what the Rebbe is saying about Yedikar is Emunah's Chachamim. And you have to know it. There's moisturous. Well, is there anyone here willing to say, I don't have moisturous in my moyach? I wasn't swayed by what I heard from the media. I wasn't swayed what I heard someone say this or someone say that, right? Is there anyone that could say that? We don't have any moisturous in them, right? Aside from the fact that what we eat brings us moisturous and all that. So the whole idea is you have to get away from a little bit this, a little bit that. I have to try and look the center column. The center column is Das, Tiferes, which is Emes, right? Then you have Yesod, and you have Malchus, right? Yesod is the foundation of all Yiddishkeit. That's the Emunah, right? And then the Emunah is itself is Malchus. Emunah is called Malchus, right? To explain it a little bit more, Rav Nosson says that Emunah could be depicted as a table or a chair with 4 legs. Emunah has 4 legs to it. First leg is Emunah in Hashem. Second leg is Emunah in the Torah HaKadosha. The Torah is Mishamayim, Torah Shebiksav, and Torah Shebal Peh. The Torah, anything I find in Torah is Mishamayim. I believe that. The third leg is Emunah Chachamim, what the Rebbe is talking about here. I have to have Chachamim, Emunah, in our Chachamim, the Chofetz Chaim, the Vilna Gaon, the Baal Shem HaKodesh, Rabbi Nachman, Beis Yosef, going back and back. But Reb Nosson says there's one other leg to Emunah that you have to have, and if you don't have it, the other 3 won't matter much. And that Emunah is called Emunah in yourself. That you were created by Hashem. You are important to His plan on this planet. You have what to offer to your family, your friends, your community, whatever, to Klal Yisrael. You have to have emunah that you exist for a purpose and you can fulfill that purpose. You have to have emunah in yourself. If you have that emunah, then you know you can go forward in learning, in davening, any mitzvah that you do, any dover toiv that you think of doing, you could accomplish it because you have that emunah in doing that you can do it, right? You can do it. I was brought up modern Orthodox in Borough Park in the 1950s, and I went to a modern Orthodox day school, and at the age of 12 and a half, I was introduced to Breslov. So whatever. But I grew up, I went to Mir Yeshiva here in Eretz Yisrael, and I was thrown out of Mir Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael because I was a Breslover, right? Mashkiach called me one Friday night, I can't keep you here because you're a Breslover. Get out. If it wasn't Shabbos, I'd kick you out now, but I'll let you stay till Motzei Shabbos. Very nice. Okay, whatever the case is, he's over for Sholem, so I don't want to say his name or anything. But whatever the case is, I went back home eventually. I learned in Breslov and Meir Sharm. I went back home, I got married, I became an electrician. I worked as an electrician for, what was it, 8 years, something like that. I moved to Eretz Yisrael in 75. In 76, I got involved teaching Bali Tshuva. And that's when I began to see the power of Breslov. I was introduced to Breslov, I was 12 and a half, and I learned the Svarim. I was fairly knowledgeable of the Svarim, but I didn't realize the power until I started teaching Bali Tshuva. Now, I don't know if I'm a worthy leader or not. I don't accept it yet. I have a lot of ways to go. But point is that I began to...
The Suffolk Dirabonon.
Suffolk Dirabonon. Okay, Rukula means probably not. Okay. But anyway, then I began to see the power of Rabbi Nachman. I began to see what he's teaching and how he could help. I worked in a place called Dvar Yerushalayim. Rabbi Horowitz, he's nearly 100 now. But he was a member of the Manchester Bezdin, and a lot of the boys were from England. I had been exposed to different people beforehand. I never was exposed to such an eclectic group of kids that I couldn't believe. One guy was there, he ran away from home because he came home one day, his father was beating his mother with a hammer, right? These are the homes that these people came from, right? It really, a lot of weird stories. You wouldn't believe half of them. Anyway, I began to see the power what Rabbi Nachman's teaching us. Emes, straight, simple, truth, forward, go ahead. There is a Ribbon Shalom. Make your connection. Make your connection with Hashem. You can't do it by yourself. You don't have any idea what Hashem is teaching you. Hashem gave us a Torah. Torah is from the word guide. It's a guide, like a mirror. A guide, a teacher. Right? What's it teaching you? You understand? Right? You can't understand any halacha from Chumash without Chazal. So you need Emunas Chachonim. You have to have that. You have to understand that the Rabbanim, all the generations, think of the Beis Yosef, right? If you read the Rishonim, they learn a sugya in Shas, the Rosh. You ever learn Gemara with the Rosh? Right? He goes through the sugya and he paskins. He sometimes brings Tosfos, sometimes he brings the Rambam, whatever the case is. But he learns the sugya and he learns it l'maisa, halacha l'maisa. All the Rishonim learned halacha l'maisa, right? Until the Torah came, nobody knew what to do. This guy followed his robe, this guy followed his robe, this guy followed that robe, whatever. The Torah put it all together, but the Torah doesn't always paskin, right? Sometimes he'll tell you, this is a psak halacha. Sometimes he'll tell you there's a machlokas a poskim, right? Take the Beis Yosef, right? He had a emunah in himself that he could take all the Rishonim. First, he wrote the Beis Yosef on the Torah. He clarified the halachas, the moko, where it comes from, and then he paskin. This is the halacha. He had a emunah in himself. The Ramah, same thing, right? So now we have the Ashkenazim, the Sardim. They have say them, but they have a psak halacha. People had emunah in themselves, right? We have to learn from them. We have to learn to have emunah in ourselves. That's also called emunas chachomim, right? We learn, what does the Torah mean to me? The Rebbe says you have to learn, you have to take out from whatever you learn, hanhogos pshutos, in order to be able to come serve Hashem. So whatever I learn, I should be able to apply it to my life. How many times could you do that? You learn Gittin, you don't want to apply it. Right? You learn Kedushin, I'm married already. What else is going to help me out? Right? Whatever the case is, learn the Dorim, you have no idea the Koyach HaPeh. Right? You say something. Right? Moitzos v'secha tishmor b'yosisa. Right? You said something. Stand by it. Stand by your word. Keep your word. You're in business, or you buy something, I know, whatever. No. You have to understand the koyach that Chazal put into us with the learning. You should be able to do the right thing. That's the koyach of the Rebbe. So I realized then what the koyach of Rabbi Nachman is to reach these kids, and that's when I said we have to start publishing Rabbi Nachman. Baruch Hashem, I know that there are tens of thousands of people around the globe, because I've gotten emails from all over the globe about people, right? Rabbi Nachman, what does he mean by this? What does he mean by this? What? Baruch Hashem, people are awakening, coming close to Hashem, because Rabbi Nachman had emunah in himself that he could teach Klal Yisrael. Rav Nosson had emunah that he could teach Klal Yisrael. And that's what emunah s'chomim, that's what a worthy Rav is. Someone who could direct somebody else to Hashem. That Hashem becomes part of your life. He's real. I have emunah that whatever I touch, Hashem is involved. That's what we have to learn from the Torah. All right? Any questions? I prattled on for a while, but okay.
How do we make sure we don't end up by a Einei Hagam?
How come
How do we make sure we don't end up by a Einei Hagam?
you don't end up by,
By a Rebbe Einei Hagam.
oh,
You have Chalkim, you have people will tell me that Reb Nachman's a Einei Hagam. Chas v'sholom.
yeah, I know, I heard that before, don't worry about it, right? Or as they say, even in Breslov, right? They used to call us the Toita Chasidim, right? Right? And our answer always was, we're not Toita Chasidim, we're Chasidus with 1,000 Rebbes, right? Everyone says Breslov this, Breslov that, Breslov, right? Everyone's teaching you Breslov, right? Nobody knows what they're talking about, but they can all teach you. How do you know? The only way you'll ever really know is through tefillah. Hashem, you daven Ashkenaz or Sfard? Huh? Sfard. So you say tefillah l'David at the end of davening, after Volitzian, right? Well, you're supposed to anyway. Okay. So it's a kapitel in Tehillim, and it shows up in a couple of places like this. The pasuk says, "Hareini Hashem darkecha." Hashem, teach me your path. Ahalech ba'amitecha. I should go in your emes. Why? Because I could fool myself. I may fool myself, right? So therefore, I have to have ahalech ba'amitecha. Let me go in your emes, right? Hareini Hashem darkecha. Hashem, teach me your path. Ahalech ba'amitecha. I should go in the emes that you want, right? Rabbi Nachman has in lesson 7. He says you can't get to Emunah unless you have emes. Rabbi Nosson has a whole discussion, Hilchus Pesach Halacha Zayin, if you want to look it up. He says, you need emes. Why? Because there's a lot of faith in the world. There's a lot of false faith. Look at the Muslims. They believe they have to kill every Jew. It's their emunah. Well, the Christians didn't do much better over all the years, right? They had their emunah. And a lot of it is avodah zarah, and so on and so forth, right? Take a look at the college kids today. They have it's all avodah zarah, right? So unless you have emes, you can't have real emunah. You have to have. Like, how can you get to emes? With tefillah to Hashem. Hashem, your emes. That's Tiferes, the middle column, right? That's how you can get it. Hashem, help me. Show me the right way. Give me a sign, right? Give me a sign. You can't challenge Hashem, but you can ask Him to please give me a sign that I'm doing the right thing, that I'm going on the derech emes, right? And if I'm doing emes, good. If I'm not, show me where I'm wrong, so that I should be able to get off that path and do the right thing. You have to daven for that. That's the spoidedus that Rabbi Nachman talks about all the time. You have to talk to Hashem, make Him part of your life. Bring Hashem into it so that He's real. He's real. I can speak to Him anytime, any place, anywhere, about anything in the world. All right? Any questions? Don't be ashamed. Lo habayshim lo meit.
So really, it comes to us that this guy that's being masmach,
Start again.
the person that's being masmach a Rebbe Sheinei Hagen, really he's having emunas hachamim. All he's missing is tefillah. That's really what he's missing.
That's not all he's missing, because otherwise he wouldn't be masmech a Rebbe Sheinei Hagen.
He's having his
He's missing the understanding.
He's missing.
Right? He has moisturers in his moyach that he can't see straight that this person is not really Roy.
He's having.
I have a guy
having
who wants to
emunas
become a
hachamim.
fundraiser by our organization. Well, I don't want it. I don't think the guy represents Breslov the proper way. Right? That's the way I think. I may be wrong, but I don't think so. Right? The guy who's masmich can't have any moisturous in the moyach. How many of us are clean from moisturous in the moyach? How many? Then the Rebbe says, if you masmich a Rebbe Sheinei Hagen, right, you get kicked out of your, right? Where were you grown up?
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Now you're in Jackson, right? You were kicked out of Brooklyn, the era of Kodesh, right? Any questions?
What is the concept of ksiva that the Rebbe is talking about? Is it a literal? Is this something literal, or it's a
It's
marshal for a dvar chokhmah?
it's literal and it's not literal. It's literal that you write a sefer, right? It goes out into the world. Someone will read it. Something that you wrote will be read by somebody else. How is it going to influence that person? It's a koyach. The same thing actually is the dibur. Lesson 17, the Rebbe speaks about it. That there's a koyach hadibur. It's as if it goes into somebody else's house or somebody else's sefer, and it's written there that this is what you're supposed to do. The koyach hadibur and the koyach haksav is a koyach that can influence other people. And you have to be very careful every word that you say, because if you influence the wrong way, then whatever that guy does wrong, it's your fault. Not an easy thing.
But if the ksiva of Torah is mitzad the chochma, so what does it mean that the ksiva goes to them? That they're koyach and their ksiva? Their ksiva has no value, like the Gemara said of the Zar Yud.
Yeah.
Kotnu bein umois she'ein lo ksav eloshen. So what is that koyach of ksiva that we're talking about? That's by the akum.
The Akum also have Bechira. Bilam. His words were law. Right? A Democratic leader, Trump, his word is almost law until the courts reverse him because they hate him, whatever. Okay, say it. But a leader, somebody who says something, makes a rule, a law, authoritative word. It could be by the Goyim, and it could be by the Yidden. Right? It has to be able, it's going to make an impression on somebody. Whatever was said, this guy in Mamzeri, the guy here in New York who was elected, right? His name is Mamdani, but if you know Hebrew, Zahav, gold, begins with a Zion. In Aramaic, it's a Dahav, right? So the Zion and the Dalet are interchangeable. So this guy Mamdani is really Mamzeri, right? You have to realize that this is what we're dealing with, right? The point is that the guy says something, people pick it up. People accept whatever is said. If the guy's a goy, if the guy's a yid, right? Depends what kind of yid, right? You have the American Jewish Congress, you have the B'nai B'rith. They don't represent me, but when they say something, it seems like this is what it is, right? The ksav, or the dibur of a person, could make an impression, could influence somebody to do the wrong thing. That's why you gotta have worthy people in office, which doesn't usually happen in a democratic election. Not my fault. I didn't invent the system. Question? Question? Don't be ashamed.
What's proper system?
Huh?
What's a proper system?
What's?
Proper system.
I can't hear. I'm
How
sorry.
would the Rebbe invent the system?
I can't hear. I'm sorry. I don't hear. I told you. I said it in the beginning.
What's a proper system?
What's a proper system? When you have someone like Moshe Rabbeinu getting up there telling you this is what you're supposed to do, right? Zoisachaya asher toichlu, right? I heard a guy, a Reform rabbi, I spoke in his shul in Oregon, Portland, not Portland, Eugene, Oregon, right? And he told me he doesn't, he eats shrimp because he doesn't hold from that chumrah, right? That's what the guy said. I don't hold from that chumrah of not eating shrimp. Whatever. But Baruch Hashem, I know I brought Rabbi Nachman to that shul. There are people who studied Rabbi Nachman after that. Point is that you have the proper system is you have the Torah HaKadoshah. Today we have the Shulchan Aruch. You can't choose to follow just the Rambam or the Rashba or the Torah. You can't. We have a Shulchan Aruch. That's a proper system. What it says, black and white. We have a Mishnah Berurah today. There are cholkim on the Mishnah Berurah too, but we have guidance. Right? We have. That's a proper system. Right? The Rebbe said in Sichas Haran, he says, you can knesh my sefer from ek bezek. Learn the Kuta Moran from end to end. Right? Learn it, question it, right? Yamkus, tile, b'tarosoy, do all that. But don't go away one iota from Shulchan Aruch. Right? That's what the Rebbe said. That's a proper system. You follow the Shulchan Aruch. Right? And you're going to have problems there too, because this Rav says this is mutar, this Rav says this. Okay, but you have a Rav, at least who's telling you. At least you think he's a good Rav. Questions?
Your son said that you wanted us to say one.
I want to say, maybe
I don't
you
know.
want to say.
I don't know. I don't know.
Huh?
No, you wanted to speak about
Yeah. The Kuta Moran.
yeah.
You guys are learning the Kuta Moran? You know there's an English translation in 15 volumes that explains the Kuta Moran. We have it in Hebrew too. If you speak Spanish, we have it in Spanish also. Some volumes are available in French and Russian, but whatever. We're now at the point, we have a new project. Take the Likutei Moharan with the commentary and make it into a pocket edition, like a travel edition. You have small svarim that you can take along with you on a trip. The Likutei Moharan, right? In English, it's 15 volumes. In Hebrew, in the small format pocket edition, it's 30 volumes. Right? We did a preliminary experiment on it. We figured that it'll cost us about $2,500 a volume. 30 volumes. We already have, Baruch Hashem, 18 sponsors to pick up 18 volumes of this pocket-sized Likutei Moharan. We're looking for 12 more. If there's anybody who wants to join, that you can have a pocket Likutei Moharan, $2,500, a volume is yours, right? You'll get a full dedication in the volume, and you'll be mezakeh others. The Gemara in Ksuvis says, Ashrei Shomrei Mishpat, Oisei Tzedakah B'chol Eis. Is it possible for a person to do tzedakah b'chol eis? Not possible. The Gemara says, Ze ha'koisei svarim u'mashilum la'acherim. You write svarim and you lend it out. You make it available for other people. If you write the sefer, if you support the publication of a volume, somebody is going to read that volume and you get a schus. His learning becomes your schus too. So it's a gewaldige business, only $2,500, right? And we're looking for sponsors. I hope that we'll leave here tonight with a couple of sponsors, right? Up to you guys. You can get together a few guys and donate the money. All right, my son can tell you, you can pay it out, 10 payments or whatever the case is. So it's not so much, right? Be'ezah Hashem. And we'd like to share with you, just like we shared the lesson tonight, we'd like to share with you, or let you share with us, bringing out Rabbi Nachman to the world. All right? We bring out Rabbi Nachman to the world. Anyone who learns it is on your schus. That's a big thing. Pasuk in Yeshaya says, Mi yolad li yasela, v'ani shchulu v'galmuda. Who gave birth to all these people? Talking Yerushalayim when Mashiach comes, right? V'ani shchulu v'galmuda. I have nobody. where do you get to all these people coming to Yerushalayim, which I'm Zoicha, I live in Eretz Yisrael, I see it. But whatever. Svarim bring that after 120, a guy goes up to heaven, and they put his mitzvahs on the scale, right? Oh, it's going good, right? And then they come with the bad stuff, and it starts evening out the scale. Maybe it's this way, maybe it's that way, we don't really know. Maybe it's too much the other way. But then heaven calls out, is there anyone here that has a schus to say for this person? And they can come hundreds, maybe thousands of mitzvahs, and they go on the positive scale. And it weighs out. Where does it come from? Right? It's when you help somebody else do a mitzvah, you get schar for that mitzvah too. So if you help somebody else learn and daven and come close to Hashem, it's all your schus. So that's what we're asking you for your schus, right? I'm 47 years in the business of printing Rabbi Nachman. Right? Don't ask me how. I have a magnet in my office that says, I started off with nothing, and I still have most of it. Right? Except, I will say, between the first nothing and the nothing of today, more than $10 million went out to print Rabbi Nachman. Right? So I can tell you, I'm not worried about we'll find the people. Hashem has helped us till now, we'll find the people. But you have the chance to get the mitzvah. Right? Would you like to join? Okay? I understand it's time for my roof.
Thank you so much.